evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for watching. Here are your top stories.
I voted in support of the Emergencies Act, and I support and I stand by that decision to this day.
I know that there's been some concerns that we're excluding parents from the process and that, parents don't get to know, but really it's to prevent a student from potentially being outed.
Chris Holt is going off without all the facts, not talking with the partners.
We are out there with accurate information. We know that.
It is day one of the public inquiry into the Federal Emergencies Act invoked on February 14th. That act started just after authorities cleared a blockade that shut down the Ambassador Bridge here in Windsor. Officials are expected to address how those protesters were removed during the inquiry, but it will focus on the events involving the so-called Freedom Convoy that brought downtown Ottawa to a standstill for weeks. Here's Rafi Bujikanian with the details from the opening day.
Ottawa police moving in after 3 weeks of little action, putting an end to the blockades and protests on Parliament Hill in February, but the invoking of the act also triggered important questions.
The exceptional powers given to it by the Emergencies Act affects directly or indirectly all Canadians. How and why the powers in the act were invoked are matters of great public interest.
And on this point, already battle lines have been drawn. Provinces like Alberta pointing out authorities stopped a border crossing blockade there without extra legislation.
None of the powers that were created under the Federal Emergencies Act were necessary, nor were any of them used in Alberta to resolve the Coots blockade.
The Emergencies Act requires several things. One, it could be invoked due to espionage and sabotage. Are you going to hear any evidence about espionage and sabotage? The answer to that is no. It also could be invoked on the basis of threats or use of acts of serious violence against persons or property. Are you going to hear evidence of violence against persons or property? The answer is no.
We knew from the very beginning that invoking the Emergencies Act is a big step. It had never been done before, but given these unprecedented illegal protests, we needed to take action.
Open publicly, the commission attracted few curious onlookers today, though they did include convoy organizer Tamara Leach.
What do you think of the use of the emergency powers?
No, I'm not going to comment on that right now.
As one of 65 anticipated witnesses, Leach will have less of a choice once she takes the stand. The Prime Minister and 7 members of his cabinet are expected to testify as well, and the commission says it will produce thousands of documents in the next 6 weeks. All this as it expects to wrap up its work next February. The commissioner already hinting today that's a tall order for a tight timeline. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Who want the vaccine? Go get the vaccine. I don't want the vaccine. I don't have nothing against who has the vaccine. I'm just out here. We want our lives back.
That is from the first night of the Ambassador Bridge blockade back in February. It lasted 7 days. Manufacturers saying it halted production, forcing them to cancel shifts for employees. The ordeal ended with arrests on the Sunday after an injunction was enforced. This hearing will include Windsor's mayor, acting police chief, and the OPP. A lawyer for the city of Windsor made an opening statement today.
As a local government at the front lines of emergency response and as the home of critical infrastructure, Windsor is interested in recommendations and planning that recognizes and supports the municipal role in emergency response and protects the international crossings in Windsor in a way that prioritizes and supports the interests and needs of the city and its residents and businesses.
The act was invoked following conversations between Windsor-Tecumseh MP Eric Kusmerchuk and the Prime Minister. Kusmerchuk was in Windsor today and defended the government's actions.
There were folks in our community that were sent home because their businesses, their factories and operations were closed because they could not get parts and they could not get product to market. It had a severe impact on our economy, and furthermore, it threatened, it jeopardized the $10 billion of investment that we attracted here. That's the battery plant and the EV production at Windsor Assembly. I voted in support of the Emergencies Act, and I support and I stand by that decision to this day. It was important to get that bridge freed up, unlocked, and it was important to restore law and order in Ottawa and across the country.
Let's turn now to a local school policy that's come under scrutiny as we approach the municipal election. That's when people will also be voting for student trustees. At both public and Catholic English school boards, students of any age can identify by a different gender and name at school without the knowledge of their parents. The policy was created in June of last year, meant to protect the privacy and well-being of young people. But some parents are raising concerns about feeling shut out of their children's lives. The CBC's Jason Vio explains.
Get more quick acceptance if I told people my age who already knew me.
April Friel first came out as bisexual to her friends when she was 15. Shortly after, she told her parents.
They clarified that it didn't matter and that it wouldn't change anything, which was good. That's exactly what you want to hear.
Now, as an 18-year-old university student, she looks back at her time at Holy Names High School as an accepting place, and being part of her Gender and Sexuality Alliance provided another safe space. Some teachers even went as far as asking students what gender pronouns they'd like to use.
It's a good environment to have at school, just to let you know that you're appreciated and that you're validated.
Taking that a step further, school boards created gender identity and expression policies for students. At the Greater Essex County District School Board, it says a school should never disclose a student's gender identity, chosen name, and/or pronouns to the student's parents or guardians without the student's explicit prior consent. This is true regardless of the age of the student. The Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board has a similar policy. Both reference the Ontario Human Rights Code in protecting student privacy and dignity.
What has happened to me is unfair, wrong. They violated my rights as a parent.
This local mom feels the school board's policy shuts parents out of a big aspect of their child's life. CBC News has not identified the mom to prevent inadvertently outing her child, who is in high school. The mom learned her trans daughter had been open about their gender identity with school staff and students for more than a year.
If you don't educate the family, but you're letting the child learn all about his new gender, you're screwing me over. You're putting me in a place where I can't win. I can't be part of that. You're taking that away from me.
She's not the only one. Two other parents expressed concerns about the policy at an all-candidates trustee debate last month, but the Board of Trustees views it differently.
And I think at the end of the day, if a parent is involved in their child's life, if they know knowing these things will come naturally, and it's just really about the child being able to dictate those steps as opposed to, outing a child unnecessarily to their parent.
As a student, Friel says she appreciates this policy.
So I'd say policies with confiding in teachers, keeping it a secret, means a lot to young people. Make it feel like an environment that can feel more like a home than your house does sometimes.
Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
We're less than 2 weeks to election night, and one of the big issues is mental health care. The heads of Windsor Regional Hospital and Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare are refuting claims by mayoral candidate Chris Holt today. This after he pitched to voters a downtown emergency room for mental health care. Dale Molnar reports.
Chris Holt wants to take $9 million away from Adventure Bay and the Beacon holding the refurbished streetcar and put it toward an emergency room in the downtown core to deal with mental health. Holt mentioned in a news release that he had collaborated with Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare on the proposal, but Drew Dilkins has tweeted out a letter from HDGH CEO Bill Mara that reads in part, "We are in no way involved in collaborative discussions or partnership opportunities whatsoever with any municipal candidates as had been implied." CBC News has not been able to independently verify the letter came from Mara. However, today HGDH and Windsor Regional Hospital issued a joint statement repeating that and adding it was inappropriate for a political candidate to make such a baseless claim. Holt says he wasn't trying to imply a partnership.
And we just reached out to Windsor or Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital to see if our numbers were accurate.
And the letter comes from the CEO of Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare saying no one's ever talked to us about the plan.
Holt says his plan mirrors Dilkin's plan for a 24-hour drop-off center for those suffering mental health issues.
It's exactly the same thing, except we are moving forward and we're pledging to actually fund it.
But Dilkin says it's not the same thing.
Chris Holt is going off without all the facts, not talking with the partners. His decision-making is risky, and in fact, the plan he put forward talks about spending $9 million of city taxpayer funding to fund projects that are the responsibility of the province of Ontario.
Holt also thanks the Downtown Mission as one of the agencies that is dealing with the mental health issue. The executive director says they have already been working with the mobile health clinic and would like to see something permanent.
We would definitely appreciate that support, and I know us as at the mission, we'd obviously work with those partners in whatever capacity it might be that would be required.
Holt's plan lacks details such as where the emergency room would be located, but he says he is only responding to what the community wants.
Everything we do in this campaign is a reflection of what the general public has been telling us they want to do.
Hospital officials say they are not commenting on the issue further. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
We go now to an update on the complaint filed by a Chatham mom against her son's psychiatrist. She's disappointed by a decision from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. Leonie Van Pembroek's son, Robert Martin, died by suicide in April. Van Pembroek thought that the doctor had been insensitive to her son, adding in the complaint that the psychiatrist discharged Martin too soon from an involuntary stay at the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance. She also complained that her son's request for a new doctor was ignored. The doctor claimed he was not aware of that request, according to the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. The Inquiries, Complaints and Reports Committee was dismayed by that response, saying that the request had been noted in 2 nursing notes the doctor had been copied on. The college said it's advised the doctor to improve communication, responsiveness and professionalism in response to Van Pembroek's complaint. She says it's not good enough.
Saying the outcome would have been different for Robert. I'm just saying, how about we hold the people accountable for some of these things so that the patients going forward have better care, or at least are listened to, or have their feelings validated, or so that they don't just give up because someone who's supposed to be in the healthcare system isn't listening to them.
Ottawa police issued an arrest warrant today for a man from Windsor who's been charged with hate-motivated crimes after threats were made against an Ottawa doctor. He's also been charged under a new law meant to protect healthcare workers. Now, as Dan Takema reports, the doctor who was targeted is speaking out.
I won't allow people to threaten and intimidate and think that they can get away with it. They can't.
Dr. Neely Kaplan-Mirth says she's received harassing calls, emails, and even threatening visits during the pandemic. But it's not going to stop her from speaking out in favor of public health measures.
We can't go around cowering to these kinds of bullies, and I just won't abide it.
Ottawa police announced today that a 58-year-old Windsor man has been charged with hate-motivated crimes made during phone calls to a healthcare worker. The charges include harassing communication, harassment by repeated communication, mischief, and a new charge for intimidating a healthcare worker. Kaplan-Mirth says she was the target of those calls. She's kept records of those voicemails.
It's very aggressive, and it's very anti-Semitic, and it's misogynist. This isn't somebody who is disagreeing with public health policy, right? This is a person who is looking to try to make me feel scared.
The federal government passed the new law late last year, which makes it illegal to intimidate healthcare workers. Only a few people have been charged so far.
But the reality is that the right to protest peacefully does not extend to intimidation. If there were a conviction following a trial, or if an accused person were to enter a guilty plea in relation to this offense, it would be, I suppose, a precedent because it would be the first time that it ever happened.
Kaplan-Mirth rose to prominence for offering vaccine clinics and advocating for public health measures to protect against COVID-19. She's also in the public eye now, running for school board trustee. The doctor says the threats and harassment have increased over the pandemic, which is why she believes the new law is necessary.
So we have to be able to do our work, and that's why this law is so important for healthcare professionals. It's a way of protecting us while we do what is truly essential. Yeah. All right.
Kaplan Mertz says she won't change her stance on healthcare measures despite the harassment. Dan Takema, CBC News, Ottawa.
Louis Vopotic is a dentist who is pitching himself as the next mayor of Windsor. His big idea, a gondola across the Detroit River. Here's part of his interview with the CBC's Jacob Barker.
Why are you running for mayor?
Well, I want to create jobs for Windsor. I submitted a proposal back in 2005 to the city of Windsor, and I never even got a thank you by Eddie Francis. And then I submitted other proposals, and they never responded to me, and I never even got a thank you from the current mayor. So I should present my case.
Sorry, what? It's a proposal for what?
Oh, I wanted to do the tram project across the river, because since the 1960s, they wanted to do that project. And I control enough land where it could be done, and the time is the right time.
It seems like a very singular issue to run for mayor on.
Well, that was just the major, because it could potentially create 5,000 jobs. And that's like a big issue. That's like bringing a factory to a city, and I'm just one guy that can kind of do it.
Sorry, and it's a tram. Can you explain what this tram is?
Oh, it's a gondola that goes across the river, and there would be a ferry component and electric takeoff flying car component too. The ETOL-V.
Okay. Affordable housing is an issue that people have brought up to us that is important to them. Mm-hmm. What would you do to create more housing in the city?
Well, with the way interest rates are going, it would kind of work towards helping affordable housing, because a lot of homeowners can't afford to buy a home. And the only way to afford your home would be to maybe rent out a room. And if you were able to rent out a room and you had the tax incentive for doing it, then that would create like a lot of potential living accommodations for people that are stable and working but can't afford premium market rent. When my parents first came to Canada and they had a house, they rented out the rooms in the house, and that's how they were able to afford a house. So that might be a model to look towards.
Let's take a live look outside there. Chance of showers tonight, mix of sun and clouds tomorrow, and Josiah will be here in just a little bit for your Friday and weekend forecast ahead. Stay with us. is time now for a look at our weather forecast, and for that we've got Josiah Sinanen once again. Josiah went for a run this morning. It was cold, so what's going on?
Yes, it was cold. We had a cold front come in from Michigan last night with those wind gusts. Still a bit gusty today, but we are going to see things get a little bit cozier. It warmed up a little bit, and let's take a look at that 5-day forecast. That trend is going to continue. We see 13s across the board on the 13th of October. Hopefully not a bad luck omen. This is warmer than we were originally forecasting. We're seeing increasing cloudiness tomorrow with a chance of showers in the evening. Saturday, a chance of showers with a chilly evening low of 2 degrees. Sunday, mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. And Monday, showers with a high of 11 and a low of 3 that evening. 60% chance of rain in the evening or flurries. Now, I hate to say that. We'll keep an eye on those flurries coming, Kat, but that did make me raise my eyebrows.
That is unacceptable. I can't believe that you had to even say that word on the air,
shoot the
but it is
messenger.
what it is, I guess. What else is on the go this time of year?
Yeah, well, it is this time of year, Kat, where things are starting to take a spookier turn, even for our birders. It's crows and raptors season, taking to the skies across the region. Today on Windsor Morning, Nav spoke with the organizer of the Chatham-Kent Crow Fest. Take a look at this. In Chatham-Kent, they have a whole festival dedicated to crows. They used to try to get rid of them. Now they're embracing it. There's even going to be a crokinole tournament, so that's this weekend.
Okay, so it's crokinole, not crokinole,
Yes,
which is a game I've never played before, actually. That's
It's
a
fun.
confession I have to make.
It's a good game. And you know what, Kat, if you have more of a backbone, maybe you do, it's also Hocktoberfest. So this is taking place at the Holiday Beach Conservation Area on Saturday from 9 to 3. It's the last weekend it's open to the general public, and there are going to be hawk experts guiding visitors as to what they can see in the skies. It is that migration season for our red-tailed hawks, our Cooper's hawks, but also golden eagles and ospreys. So we'll have more on that on Afternoon Drive tomorrow on CBC Radio 1.
'Tis the season to be a bird watcher, because we told everybody about the kingbird, the tropical bird that happens
That's
to be
right.
in Windsor as well. So lots to keep an eye on. Thank you so much,
You're
Josiah.
welcome,
really
Kat.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you all stay tuned. We'll have more news for you coming right up. Stay with us. Welcome back. More than 170 Ukrainian refugees arrived in St. John's this week. It's the third plane chartered by the Newfoundland and Labrador government since Russia's invasion began in February. For all the new arrivals, it's an escape from an escalating war. But for some, this is also a long-awaited family reunion. Jeremy Eaton has that story.
A huge hug, months in the making.
I wait 4 months. 4 months wait my family.
Sergei Plakty landed in St. John's on a similar chartered plane back in June. He quickly landed a job right here at the airport.
I work now in Pal Airlines. Yes, very good company, help Ukrainian people.
Wow, but he had to wait until now for his wife and 2 children to arrive. Finally, reunited.
The best feeling to be together. Really, the best feeling.
All around the airport, government staff and volunteers from the Association for New Canadians were there to welcome those coming from a war-torn Ukraine.
We were lucky because we left just 2 weeks before the invasion, at the end of January. We arrived here with my wife and with 2 girls.
Since arriving in June, he started working with the immigration department. His job, welcoming people from his homeland to a new home. The Ukrainians who landed know what they've escaped.
Very glad that we are here. It's our new home. We are our friend, new friend and new family, and I believe it's true. And I think it will be all right here.
The provincial government partnered with CanAid and other humanitarian groups to fill up the chartered plane for the return flight.
To send back 8,600 pounds of supplies for Ukrainian children's hospitals and for orphanages.
Things like hygiene products, winter boots, baby wipes, and diapers. While that aid makes its way from Poland to Ukraine, Karina Plakty can now make her way to her new home.
I want to say thank you, huge thank you to the whole government of Newfoundland, of St. John's, to give us the opportunity to come here to start new life. Thank you so much.
Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
So touching to see some of those reunions there. That is it for CBC Windsor News. And before we go, we'd really like it if you send us your photos of the fall. We want to see what this season is looking like to you. Some beautiful trees in my neighborhood. So I want to see the trees in your neighborhood. And don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching and have a great night.